Welcome to the Rediscovering Your Creative Self podcast, where you get a weekly dose of inspiration and motivation for your creative practice. Left brain and right brain days. Sometimes, as creatives, we need to focus in such a way that we are utilizing a certain part of our brain hemisphere that is easily transferable between tasks. And what I mean by that is if we're having a left brain day, a day which there's a lot of things scheduled that are more time oriented, more mathematical, more logical, more everyday routine, things like checking emails and adding things to our online store, or going out to the bank, or other things that we need to do, like ordering art supplies. Those are all left brain days. Activities that the left brain, if it stays in that one particular area, can do quite well on. And then we have right brain days. Right brain days are when we are painting and creating and doing things within our process. And what I learned over the years is when I try to do part of the day a left brain day or left brain activity, and the other half of the day doing more right brain things, I find that I'm more frustrated with both, believe it or not. So in other words, my painting process is interrupted because my brain is still thinking about some of the things that maybe I did in the morning that were more left brain oriented, and vice versa. Okay. I'm distracted trying to focus on my left brain things because I know I have to paint, and then I have anxiety about that. And so what I've learned is I kind of try to schedule things. If it's going to be all left brain, I will just build that whole day around that. It's a day where I'm just in organization mode. I'm in, a certain kind of a flow. And then there's days where I say, nope, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just doing my creative stuff. Nothing's going to interrupt me. I'm not going to be, answering the phone or doing anything that will distract me from doing the things that I need to do on that day. And one of the things that I would like to share with you is a friend, Marshall Arisman, who's no longer with us. He once said to me, and I think his way of thinking about this is very along the same lines as mine, is he said, I get up in the morning and I ask myself, what does my body feel like today? Because sometimes, unless it's a hard appointment where I actually have to communicate or show up with somebody else that we've determined a certain date, sometimes I plan on having a painting day, and I get up in the morning and it's just like, it's not there. I don't feel it in my body. I don't have the energy. I don't have the clarity. It's just one of those things. And so then I look at my schedule and say, okay, all the stuff that I wanted to do that was more organizational or more left brain, where are they? And I'm going to move them all to this day. So I have to shift sometimes. And I think we all recognize, living with ourselves after a certain amount of time, what our own body energies are. And I think it takes more from me to do my creative work than it is to do almost anything else in my life. And I think it's because when we draw, when we paint, when we create, there's a great deal of focus. It's a focused amount of energy that's kind of required. And that's an exercise skill that we build over time. And I think with the other activities, I'm going to call them my more left brain activities, I think I'm more on autopilot. I can talk and you get how they say talk and chew gum at the same time. I can talk and do this and do that. And I can do multitasking within those left brain activities very easily. I cannot do that with my art. One of the things that you'll see a lot of artists that demonstrate and do things like that is how challenging it is to paint, focus, and talk at the same time. That takes some time to get the skills to do. I don't think I'm anywhere near there. If I'm really doing something that I have to focus and it's not something I've done a million times, there's a point where if I'm talking, I'll just get distracted. So I think there's something there in terms of our energy and the way our brain works in terms of tasks and things that we're doing. So it's come to a very conscious level for me to the point of I plan myself around this, is knowing that when I'm doing my creative activities, I can't be distracted. It's kind of like I start thinking of other things in the back of my mind. Uh-oh, at 2 o'clock, I got this, I got to stop. Did I prepare for that? I mean, if my brain is thinking in those lines while I'm trying to paint, it just, it, I don't feel I'm connecting. And I feel with the type of work that I do, I have to be focused and I have to be connecting with, the subject and the coloring and the vibe and the overall dynamic action of the piece. And there's all these things that are involved that I have to be in that realm. I once saw a TED Talk, and of course the name has slipped my mind on who was the speaker, but she was a neuroscientist, and I believe she had some kind of an injury to her brain. And I don't know if it was she slipped or something happened, but I recall her talking about being in the shower and her brain was stuck in the right hemisphere. And she said that the shower and the shower tiles and everything that was happening in the bathroom they were all becoming one. She was connected with everything. That's probably one of the most interesting things about being an artist and being creative is when we are in the creative zone, we are at one with everything. There is a harmony with everything. And in the other hemisphere, there can be an ego and an isolation and, the inner critic. And I mean, there's so many other things that are involved in that other hemisphere where we are in the shower and the tile is separate and the water is separate and we don't become one. We can see those things. So obviously both sides of our brain are important, but it's just interesting how the analytical mind of a neuroscientist can really explain and experience and communicate some of those inner concepts of what's happening. So there definitely is a difference in strengths. And I think if I had to talk about myself, I'd say that I'm kind of an equal in that. Of like I have strengths on one end when I'm doing those, and I have strengths on the other side of my brain when I'm doing those. But there are people that are definitely dominant in one area. And I see it most with children. So you'll have children that are definitely really great book learners, They can pick up something, read something, study, and they're just great at doing tests and very left brain oriented. And then I see other people, my daughter is one of them. She hates studying and she literally dreads the word test. But she can teach herself a foreign language. You know what I mean? She can, if she does something where she's physically doing it and she's creating it and she's learning it through the motions of doing it. I mean, she's taught herself to sing songs and, Japanese and it's just basically by hearing and by doing. So there's people that pick up things and learn things in many, many different ways. So what I'm trying to get across in our talk today is figuring out what kind of learner are you and where do you work best in terms of the activities that an artist has to do? Because we definitely have, and especially if you run a business, we definitely have a split of activities that we need to focus on. And what are the things that you can do to get the most out of your time when you have to do those left brain things, and the most out of your time when it is time to do more of your creative process and not how to be distracted. And the interesting thing too is I've had this conversation, I've had this talk in different classes and things that I've taught over the years, and people started to understand that no wonder why I'm distracted when I'm painting. Because yes, that's me. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about all these other things while I'm trying to focus on painting. And I just thought that was just the way I was. But if you give your brain the time to get all of those other things off the table, so in other words, they're done. They're off the table. They had their own day, or your brain knows, well, tomorrow is the day to worry about that. So I'll think about that tomorrow because I already gave that a day. Okay. Then your brain says, well, now I don't have to think about that. I can just focus on this. And I think ultimately our brain likes to be in focus mode. It likes to think about one thing at a time, not multiple things at a time. Although most of us who like to say we're multitaskers, and I'm one of them, that we can do that. I don't, the science is there. And I've seen it myself that all we end up doing is taking away from the quality of focus, the amount of pushing that you can do with your work in terms of elevating it when you're in a more focused state is there. And I've seen it. Okay. I've seen it. And I think it's just something that unless we kind of think about it consciously and we start thinking about how can we best organize our days, are we better in the morning in terms of clarity? For me, I know what times of the days I work best when I'm painting, what times of the days that I work best, at certain kinds of tasks, even within the left brain tasks. Like, for instance, my writing work has a left brain component to it, but there's also a right brain component to it. In other words, there's research and note taking and organizing of information, but then there's the actual writing and how I'm expressing myself. Those are different kinds of tasks. So what I'd like you to think about is, what's your routine? What's your creative routine? And how can you organize yourself so you're most effective in both left brain activities and right brain activities? And with that, I say, go create from the heart.
This audio series is part of my Navigating the Labyrinth of the Creative Mind Patreon endeavor. The site uniquely intermixes self-reflection and personal storytelling with exploratory mixed media techniques and expressive approaches to art making, elevating the creative consciousness and guiding each person on his or her own path to discovering the creative spark that resides within. Check us out at www.patreon.com/ Lisa L. Cyr, and that's spelled Cyr.